Messy, messy people. Hey, they exist. But what happens if one of them's a tenant? What can the landlord do? Well, that takes us to this week's case. It involves two people. George Marcus was the owner of a small apartment building with 2 apartments in it. Joseph Dalton was one of the renters in one of the apartments. Well, Joseph many times got a little behind in his rent, that he would work out rent payments with George, but at some point in time he reached a point where he just wasn't paying his rent in a timely manner, and George said, you know, I've had enough of this and you're going to have to be out of here. He evicted him. So when he went in to look at the apartment that Joseph had previously occupied, much to his surprise, he found a complete and total mess. All of the doors had been removed from the hinges. Some of the light fixtures had been pulled away from the ceiling. There was a burnt out microwave. Well, George was really ticked off with this. Not only did he want to be paid for the damage that was done to the apartment, put it back together again, he also brought a criminal action. At least he wanted the criminal action to be brought, and he was successful because he complained to the DA, and the DA brought a criminal action against Joseph. And they contended that he, Joseph, was guilty of basically malicious destruction, which is a crime in Massachusetts. Also a crime in practically all states. The only thing is, how is it actually termed? In Massachusetts, it's called malicious destruction. Okay. Anyway, the case went forward, went to trial. George came forward. He was the guy that was the principal witness. He had all kinds of evidence, photographs, various other things, showing how absolutely demolished the apartment was. Well, the jury heard this. It was a one-day trial and came away, and they found that he, Joseph, was guilty of malicious destruction. Well, Joseph wasn't happy with this, and through his attorneys, he appealed. And his argument, interestingly enough, was not that there hadn't been some changes made in the apartment, but that he did not do any destruction, that everything could be returned to the condition it was in, and that none of the changes that he made, any of the, quote, destruction, was done with any malice, and that under the statute by which he was being prosecuted, it was necessary to show that he did it with malice, that he intended to, with ill feelings, destroy the apartment. Well, the case went up on appeal, got to the appellate court in Massachusetts, and there the court heard the arguments, and guess what? It came away and it agreed with Joseph. It agreed with Joseph and said, you know, you're right. In order to be found guilty of this criminal act, it must be established that you did this with malice. And the existence of malice is not something that we're going to take lightly. And in the trial that took place, the one-day trial, as we've looked at the transcript, we do not find any evidence of malice. And because there is no evidence of malice, and because in this instance you had to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and since there was no real evidence showing that there was malice, a principal element of the crime was absent, and accordingly we find that you were improperly convicted, and we throw the conviction out. Okay, so what do we learn from this? What we learn is that when you're dealing with criminal conduct, there are many times various elements that must be established in order to show the crime. Here it's not only that the apartment was basically trashed, but it must be shown that he, Joseph, acted with malice. Now, that's in the criminal action. Now, in the civil action, George can go forward, and it doesn't make any difference whether there was malice or not. All George has to do is show the destruction, show it was done by Joseph, and he can recover his damages. Again, the difference between criminal cases and civil cases. We bring you this case, we bring cases every week so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.